Hello, everyone. Today we have a special guest. I have invited him. He's a friend to talk about soap. A lot of you have been asking me questions regarding soap, and I'll be honest. So I did apply for soap one time back in 2015, 16, and I was not successful. So I was looking for people who have had a successful soap, especially people who require visa. And I did not have to look far because there was one in my circle. We all know him. He's the founder of Match Madness on X, formerly known as Twitter. Dr. Asim Ansari, who is a PGY3 child adolescent, is currently PGY2, will be PGY3 child adolescent psychiatry fellow at Kansas University Medical Center. Without further ado, I would have him introduce himself, and then we'll just start talking about so. Dr. Ansari, thanks for joining.
Hey, Dr. Khan, thanks for having me. Yeah, guys, I'm Asim. I'm a PGY2 currently in my first year of child and adolescent psychiatry fellowship. I soaped into a transitional year program a year and a half ago now, nearly 2 years ago, um, into a transitional year program, and I'm here to answer all questions. And I just want to say thanks to Dr. Khan for having me. I really appreciate it. You've been doing some great things, and I always look forward to it. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your kind words. So, first to begin with, just a brief overview of soap in what is soap? Very, very basic question.
It's essentially when you don't match, it's whatever programs have unfilled spots, they participate in the soap. And it's essentially another match on steroids, and it happens over the course of 72 hours, I believe, from the day match. The emails go out on March 11th. You get an opportunity, if you didn't match, to have a look at the unfilled programs and apply to them. You have up to 45 tokens or programs that you can apply to. Soap works sort of like a draft system. There's a round one, round two, round three, round four. That takes place 2 days after the match email comes out. And in between those days, you have an opportunity to apply to programs, and programs have an opportunity to interview you.
Mhm.
That's essentially the gist of how soap
Okay.
works.
Okay. So, you said that you would have like 45 opportunities, like you can apply to 45
Yeah,
programs. And
yeah.
now the question is, those 45s can be of different fields or specialties, or
It
it
can
has
be
to
of
be one
any, essentially, pretty much you can apply to any specialty you want. Usually, in soap, the most unfilled positions are prelim spots like surgery and internal medicine, and then primary care, for the most part, tends to have the most unfilled spots. Your most competitive specialties like derm and whatnot, well, not derm, but all the other competitive specialties like rad, et cetera, they end up filling up very, very fast. So they don't usually have any spots. So it's mostly the primary care and prelim spots that you want to target if you just want to get in. But obviously, if you're specific, like for instance, psychiatry only had 22 spots last year, which is not a lot.
So, and then you would still be able to assign your personal statement and whichever letter you want to those
Yeah.
individually to those 45 programs.
Yes, it works exactly the same way
Mhm.
as the original match did.
Mhm.
I think the only difference is you're allowed to update your personal information. So if you want to update whatever is in the personal information, you can't really change your CV per se. So that's sort of unfortunate where you can't update your experiences. You can't update any of your
Personal
um,
statement.
per I think personal statement you can update. Personal statement
Okay.
and LORs you can have submitted, but when you only have a couple of days, it's a little difficult. So
Okay.
I would just recommend reaching out to people now, just in case if you feel like you are
Okay.
going to end up soaping. So you have LORs ready to go,
Mhm.
updated LORs if required. Just depends on your situation, what your
Okay.
application was weakened. But yeah, you can customize LORs, personal statements, and personal information. You cannot customize the CV itself.
All right. And if you can maybe update or customize your personal statement, sometimes I think people in the past, what I've heard is they would they would give a hint about what they have been doing, like updating their CV in the personal statement for that point in time.
Yeah, I think the personal statement is the opportunity for you to update. from whatever you submitted in September all the way up until February, whatever you or March, whatever you've been doing. The
Okay.
personal statement is a place to do it. You could even, honestly, I wouldn't recommend writing a brand new personal statement. All you have to do is make tiny little tweaks. When it comes to soap, you don't have time, neither do you have the resources or the manpower usually to update stuff like write a brand new personal statement.
Mhm.
Ideally, you just want to tweak it and maybe at the top or right at the bottom, just indicate an interest as to why you're picking this specialty now or
Okay.
why you
All right.
want to do a transitional year or why you want to do a prelim year.
Okay. And my understanding is one of the biggest thing is that as compared to the normal mass process where you can send a letter of intent or there's signals or stuff, I think for SOAP, one of the biggest thing or one of the violation is that you cannot like email programs, right? You cannot contact them.
You cannot contact them until they contact you first, essentially. You cannot contact them through an intermediary or a friend of yours or whatnot. Like the bottom line is programs must initiate the first contact, and then you can contact them honestly as much as you want. Not that I recommend doing it over and over again, but that opens up the opportunity for you to contact them.
Okay. So that's very
Um,
important. That's very important
yeah.
that you should not be emailing and you should not be even asking people who per se work. So, and again, it creates another question. So the unfilled spots. So the people who are in the SOAP process will get that list, right?
That's correct. So unfortunately, if you don't match, you get an email. In the email, it will state, we're sorry, you didn't find a position for this year's match, blah, blah, blah. Here's a list of all the unfilled SOL programs. The list will be available at 11 a.m. or noon, whatever the timing is. Please go on to this website, and it's pretty easy to follow instructions. Log in with your NRMP account, and you can access the list at so and so time.
Okay.
So at the published time, the list gets released, you refresh the page, it's there. And essentially it's a web page with all the different specialties and if with hyperlinks on them and in brackets how many unfilled positions there are. So then you can click on it and then you get a PDF with the name of the program, the state that it's in, the contact information, or the NRMP and ACGME numbers or IDs, and whatever the specialty is.
Now, a lot of people ask me, let's say that someone in psychiatry, like you were applying and you did not a match, and then you
Hmm.
were able to get a spot in transitional year.
Yep.
So my question is, did you have letters that were non-psych in your already in your ERAS
I had a
application?
yeah, I had a primary care letter, I had a surgery letter, I had a neurology letter, I had a couple of psychiatry letters, but I had other letters as well.
Okay.
And I think on top of that, I had a couple of letters from externships and stuff, and then I had a few letters from my workplace where I worked for a couple of years. So I had a letter from there. So I included that in some of the four like you know how you can give up to four letters per program or whatever. So I added that one as my fourth one at times. I don't know how much it helped, but yeah, you can have as many different letters from any different specialties. And honestly, I think at that point, programs, from my understanding, they don't at that point they're just trying to fill. So where the letter comes from, I think is less important and more so what the content of the letter is matters at that point.
Now, a lot of people ask that, let's say someone applied to psychiatry and
Hmm.
primarily he or she has psychiatry letters. Now, even then, with psychiatry letters, that applicant may have a chance, let's say if that applicant chooses to apply, let's say to EM, prelim surgery, transitional year, would that person still stand a chance?
I mean, it's always hard to say if a person stands a chance for their
Hmm.
unique circumstances. I really think it's how you pivot and
Hmm.
use the skills from your primary field of interest to your other field of interest, whatever that is. And I know that it's desperate times, but I would still um, really think about and introspect before applying to a completely different specialty, whether or not that's something you can do for the rest of your life. Like, for instance, psychiatry and EM are two completely different beasts altogether. Um, and like the procedural skills or the lack of procedural skills. So there's a lot you will have to think about in order to pivot to something like psychiatry. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, most specialties, they all use the same skill, like basic skills, right? So as long as you can make that pivot and articulate and demonstrate that I would be good in this for so and so reason, you'll be okay. And it doesn't have to be like a long-winded, two-paragraph explanation. It just has to be short, to the point, and your personal statement, for the most part, will speak to all your other skills.
Okay, yeah, and so I think that over the past couple of years, especially last year, what a lot of people I got to know did was that they were like they applied for internal medicine, family medicine, P's they did not match, and EM had a lot of spots. So
Yep.
those kind of specialties, internal medicine, family medicine, pediatrics, they actually can qualify in a way for EM. So they had a lot of success in that. So, have you heard about a similar thing, especially in terms of EM? Because a lot of people have been asking me about EM, and some applicants actually had an EM letter as a backup to begin with.
Well, if you have an EM letter as a backup to begin with, that's fantastic. Considering the unfortunate reality of what's happened with EM in the past couple of years, although it wasn't too bad last year. Um, but yeah, I think you can make that pivot as long as you have the documentation to prove it, I guess.
So, my understanding is over the years, what I have gotten to know, I think the most number of spots people uh, see is in the prelim surgery, right? Uh, Prelim surgery is something that I've heard. Now, have you had any experiences, your personal or you knew people that they primarily applied to some non-surgical specialties and they ended up in prelim surgery in the soap?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's multiple examples of people who didn't want to do anything to do with surgery, that ended up applying to prelim spots because it's an opportunity to stay in the system. One of my colleagues who's actually, oh, well, yeah, someone I know who's did a prelim spot is now working as a psychiatrist. So, like a prelim search spot and then whatnot, and now they're working. So you can definitely, I think the fact is that you get your foot in the door, and no matter what type of prelim position is, if you take a look at the prerequisites required for the ACGME specialty that you're going into for second year, if you can somehow meet that criteria in your first year using your electives and cores, if it works out, like I sort of did that with psychiatry. I finished all my electives apart from the psych part, in my transitional year, which like honestly qualifies me for a PGY2 spot. So people can take an opportunity to do that. Like if you want to go into PM&R or OB,
Even
um,
neurology, advanced
even
neurology, yeah.
neurology. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, even neurology. You can use prelim years to build your resume for the following year. And one thing it leads to is it's a 1 year in an ACGME accredited program. It's better than going unmatched. You're learning skills, you're networking, you have an opportunity to do stuff.
And you get
Yes,
money.
and yeah, exactly. You should get money, which you desperately need because you're going to be
Yeah.
applying next year again.
No, yeah, I totally agree. So as you mentioned that you have one foot in the door, I 100% agree to
Yeah.
it. And especially people who require visa, it also gives them visa to
Yeah. Yeah.
enter to legally work in US, which is a huge thing.
Hmm.
Uh, I would agree. And especially I want to use this forum to let people know for psychiatry, there are things which are a little bit different. So like Asim is doing psychiatry, you can prior to starting residency, you can do fellowship. A lot of fellowships, most common would be child adolescent because the spots for those fellowships are not filled 100%. So what you can do, the requirement is if you have done 1 year of ACGMA accredited fellowship. So like Asim did prelim, it could be anything. I have known people transitioning from surgery. I knew someone who actually transitioned from pathology, so which is
No
like
way.
entirely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that again, I'm not saying that if you don't have any interest in psych, you
Mhm.
should do it, but a lot of time people don't even realize sometimes, not I shouldn't say a lot of times, sometimes what their interests are when they actually get exposed to that specialty, they
Mhm.
feel that I should have done it before. So
Yeah.
that's another thing. So okay, now if I would ask you, so you said that there are like cycles, like there are drafts. So the first draft, you have access to 45 programs, you apply. Let's say that you don't match in that first draft. Then the next
Right.
draft, the number of opportunities get lower, or you just apply to those program and it's automatic whether you get an opportunity in the first, second, or third draft.
So after at the start of each round, and like I just pulled it up so I can talk about it while we talk. So on March, and we'll quickly go through I mean, as we're talking about, just to quickly go through it, March 11th, 11 a.m. is when applicants can start to prepare applications for SOAP. So
Mm.
11 a.m., an hour after, um, you get the email, you can start applying, and then you have March 12th, March 13th, and the morning of March 14th up until, I mean, you can continue to apply to programs, but March 14th at 9 a.m. is when the first um, round starts. So what does that mean? That means people will receive an offer,
Mhm.
and after programs have interviewed them, in between those 3 days where um, nothing's going on except for applicants applying and programs interviewing people. So you get an offer. So you have an hour or really 50, pretty much, let's see how long they have. You have 2 hours
Mhm.
to accept the offer. So 9 a.m. the offer gets sent out. So you're going to click on SOAP on the NRMP website. You're going to click on interview offers or whatever. It's pretty easy to follow, and it'll say you have received X, Y, and Z offer, and it'll list them bullet point, and it'll give you an opportunity to accept or reject. Or it'll say you have not received any offers this round.
All right.
So you have 2 hours to reject or accept that. And then you have to click it. Then at then at 12 p.m., applicants receive their second round of offers, which
Okay.
means that 11 a.m. round one finished and round one finished from 11 a.m. till 11:50, 55 p.m. Programs have an opportunity to change their list, send out more offers to whoever they want, and this goes on and on and on until round four ends. So essentially, the reason I'm going through it step by step is important to recognize that programs only have 55 minutes to make changes in
Mm.
between rounds. And what usually many programs will do is they'll make a rank list like they usually do. And as people get off, they don't change it. They just keep going with it until they fill all their
Okay.
spots.
Right. And after the round four is finished and there are still spots, at that time, my understanding is the rules change a little bit. Now you can reach out to program. Is that
Yeah,
true?
then at the end of SOAP, you'll have another list, an updated list with all of the unfilled programs, and you're allowed to contact them.
And that is
Um,
called scramble, right?
yeah, that's traditionally called Scramble. Yeah.
Okay, I
And
understand.
that is essentially from there up until you find a spot or when the next
Yeah.
match cycle starts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I may ask, at what point in that soap process did you receive the
I think
offer?
it was round two or yeah, it was round two. Um, I got
Okay.
an I got a call during round one, I think, for an
Mhm.
interview. Um, and yeah,
Okay.
and then round two, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna send you an offer in round two." And I
Mhm.
was like, "Why not round one?" But okay, they're gonna send me an offer in round two, and they did, and I got it.
So you just the first time you have those 45 opportunities to apply to 45 program, that's the only part where you apply, and the rest is more like automatic, whether they would reach out to you, they would contact you after the first round, second round, third round. You don't have to apply again to those or different programs.
Yeah, once you use the 45 tokens, you really can't do anything but wait.
Okay, I understand.
You wait for the interview, and
Mhm.
just as we're talking about tokens,
Mhm.
the most popular advice, and that's why I spoke about how programs go about changing their lists in between rounds, is the most popular advice is to use most of your tokens in round one, because many programs are not looking at lists or they fill up after round one. Most programs will fill up after round one.
Basically, you
So
can save your token for other rounds as well, right?
yeah, you can. I would honestly recommend using at least 43. 42, 41
Mm,
tokens. Save a couple
mm,
for those programs right at the end that you want to apply to. Or maybe, you get a hunch that, hey, I'm going to apply here, or something works out and you end up applying. So um, I would use most of them. But some people have different strategies. They'll use 20 in the first, 20 in the second half. I've done that as well. That wasn't very successful. I think my most successful one was where I used most of them the first time around.
all right. Okay. All right. So we'll just wrap it up. So
Sure.
let's summarize. Let's both of us summarize. So first thing is that the popular myth, I should say, is that the visa requiring IMGs, they don't stand a chance. When I started preparing for match and whenever someone used to talk about soap, that was the popular emotion that everyone had. That okay, IMGs and especially visa requiring IMGs, they don't stand a chance. What do you think about that?
Traditionally, most like if you look at the data, yeah, the majority of the unfilled positions go to American MDs slash DOs.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that IMGs or non-US IMGs don't match. They still match. And because it's a free opportunity to apply and match, you should apply. I mean, I think overall, what's the rate around 50, like somewhere it ranges from 50 to high 50s, and like 48% is the total match rate of IMGs
Mhm.
over the years. So it's understood that your chances are obviously going to be less than the other candidates, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. And every year, thousands of IMGs match. So I think you need to put all the myths aside and do what the system requires you to do to proceed in your career, and that's to apply and put your 100% into it. It doesn't matter if it's a high chance or a low chance for IMGs. The point is
Absolutely.
that you're not going to get it if you don't apply.
Absolutely. And what I would also say is that, again, Asim made a really good point that if you have a foot in the door, you can still enter, but if the door is closed, you cannot pass through it. So you have to have one hand on the steering wheel in order to steer the car. So that is very important, I think. In US is the land of opportunity. And when I say that, US healthcare system is also the training system. Interest change, aptitude change. A lot of time people don't have very hard and fast opinions, like really concrete opinions about specialties. And again, I'm not here saying that you should just change in order to just get in, but just think about your opportunities and make a good decision, well informed. I should say it's like an informed consent that you should know the pros and cons of the decision. So that is, in my personal opinion, very important. One thing I would also like to mention, a lot of people don't know. So in addition to prelim, where Asim had, that was a transitional year.
Yeah.
So that is very important. The transitional year spots, a lot of people don't apply to them. So that is a big opportunity. The other thing is, I have personally witnessed one of my friends, I should say, he primarily target neurology, and he ended up matching in prelim internal medicine. And from there, he made a good CV in neurology. He rotated and he ended up getting an advanced PG by two neurology spots in top five US
Oh,
programs.
wow.
So what I'm saying is that I have seen people getting radiology, that is interventional radiology, rehab, a lot of comparative specialties which otherwise IMGs may struggle to get into. They have gotten into after doing the prelim or transitional years. So that is very
Yeah.
important. Don't think that prelim and transitional year. I personally feel that prelim, and I'll also tell you one thing, that prelim and telemedicine sports generally they are very competitive
Hmm.
because a lot of AMGs are targeting that for derm or other highly competitive specialties. So that is also something that keep in mind, that there's not some, those are not the sports that no one took it. You don't know how the math system works. Especially, I would like to mention this year because we all know that unfortunate event that took place, the invalidation of scores. There's so much uncertainty that I feel that because the NBME, USMLE, CFMG, in my personal opinion, they made the announcement very late. The invalidation process, it's still ongoing. So I suspect, and I may be wrong, that this year there would be a lot more programs of all the specialties. You will find them in soap. So that is very unfortunate for some, but it also creates opportunities for others.
Just to I don't know how this year's match will go, but I'm hoping the best for everyone. Going back to when you were speaking about the opportunities and the doors that open up with an intern year, essentially, no matter where you do intern year, whether it's surgical prelim, IM prelim, transitional year, the biggest thing is that you're in an ACGME accredited program at the end of the year, or when you're applying in September, you're going to have a letter of recommendation from your training director. You will have a letter of recommendation from people who've been seeing you work for the past 2 or 3 months as an intern, and um, it really gives you an edge over other people. And just to give you my example, um, after during my transitional year, like traditionally, I didn't have many interviews, maybe one or two throughout the 4 years, but after the transitional year, I think I had around close to 10 interviews, 10 or 11, like 8 from psych or something, and then three from internal medicine. And I ended up getting offered a PGY2 internal medicine position as well. So I didn't take it because I wanted to do psych, but it opens up opportunities for you. And it's so important that if you just try. And if you get in, who knows? I mean, I started to like internal medicine and I considered it, but I just didn't want, I really, really wanted to do psychiatry. But a lot of people, they just get in and then they continue whatever in a PGY2 position the next year. So, lots of opportunities. And I really, really encourage people not to take soap lightly and do their very best to apply.
And absolutely. And I would give my example that the first time when I applied and I did not match, I had almost like zero idea about soap. I did not
Hmm.
play my hand right. And the
Yeah.
result is I ended up staying unmatched.
Yeah.
I did not even have idea about scramble. But I think that over the years, getting involved in the mentorship circles, I have learned
Right.
about soap. And that's why, again, I still feel that my knowledge is limited. That's why I wanted to invite Asim, who has successfully done it, and I plan on trying to interview another Sims junior of mine who actually matched in the soap last year, I think in EM. So just so that I can provide a forum to people like Asim and others who have successfully matched in the soap. So not only they know the process better, but it also gives us hope, which is very important in these days.
Oh, 100%. It's exhausting. You'll be mentally drained if you end up having to soap. Just push through it, suck it up for those 3 days, and you can process after. But give it your all because literally those 72 hours can change your life. And if you end up being unsuccessful, don't be disheartened. There's always Scramble, and there are so many new programs that are opening up. There will be multiple opportunities. Just keep your eyes open.
Absolutely, absolutely. And last year, someone I mentored actually ended up in a relatively good FM program in the Scramble. So there's always,
Oh yeah,
and that person was also a visa requiring person. So there's
yeah,
always opportunity.
yeah,
There's always light and the end of tunnel. It's not just a saying. It's
yeah.
all about if you are looking at that, if you are finding that light or not. So the last message from my end would be that when the going gets tougher, only the tougher gets going. So sorry, when the going gets tough, only the tougher gets going.
That's right.
So I know it's exhausting, as Asim said, but you should push through it because at the end, if you get it, it is a life-changing experience.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's totally worth it, guys. Just um, for those next 3 days, your mental health is very important as well because
Mhm.
you'll be have to be at your wits' end um trying to get interviews and like honestly you're when I say trying to get interviews you're just praying for interviews because you can't really do anything and you're sitting there just make sure to have a nice shirt handy doesn't matter what you wear at your bottoms as long as you look good from the waist up you're okay make sure you have access to a proper internet connection make sure
Mhm.
your phone is working it's
Mhm.
not on silent
Mhm.
and be ready to take calls from I think 7 or 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, all the way up until it gets to like 6, 7, 8 p.m. in California, if not later. People get calls at weird hours of the time,
Yeah.
day. So keep that in
But I
mind
will.
as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Asim, for joining
Yeah. Thanks
us.
for
And
having me. I appreciate it.
yeah, again, best of luck from me and Asim to all of you. I always
Likewise.
say that hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Thank you.
Yeah.